I got something very interesting that I want to talk about right now. So yeah, I'm gonna put the camera down because I'm actually driving right now, looking for parking. But I got a very interesting topic I want to talk about right now, right? Teofimo Lopez takeover. A lot of talk right now with Teo between his fight coming up with Shakur Stevenson. He has a big fight with Shakur Stevenson coming up January 31st, New York City, Madison Square Garden. The first official fight from the quote unquote Young Kings of Boxing. Teo versus Shakur, right? Now, we know that Teofimo Lopez grew up in Florida, right? But he lived in New York before. His dad is from New York. And there's been a lot of talk, you know what I mean, within his contemporaries from New York City. We've heard guys like Richardson Hitchens, for instance, say Teo's not a real New York fighter. He's not from Brooklyn. He's not really from Brooklyn, right? Most recently, Bruce Shoo Shoo Carrington recently stated as well that Teo's not from New York. He's not a real New York City fighter. This is what's been going on. This is what's been said about Teo from his contemporaries from New York City, right? What I'm about to say right now might be a little controversial, but I got to keep it a beam. Let's talk about the history of New York City fighters. Most notably, Iron Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson, the youngest heavyweight champion of all time, the youngest undisputed champion of all time, 20 years old, Mike Tyson. Since Mike Tyson, we've had guys like Riddick Bowe, undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. We had Shannon Briggs, heavyweight champion of the world. We had Zab Judah, two-division champion at 140 and 147, undisputed at 147, right? We had Kevin Kelly, the Flash from Queens, champion at featherweight. Poison Jr. Jones, Paulie Malignaggi, Richardson Hitchens, and Teofimo Lopez. Is Teofimo Lopez the most accomplished New York City fighter since Iron Mike Tyson? Absolutely. Absolutely. That's right, I said that. Despite his contemporaries saying that Teo's not a real New York City fighter, I'm going to go on the limb. Low nose boxing. I'm going on the limb to say that Teofimo Lopez is the best New York City fighter since Iron Mike Tyson. And y'all know how I carry it too. I'm not the type of bull to crown anyone any type of Hall of Fame status or all-time great status until they retire. But based on accomplishments, based on the credible victories, I'm going to say Teofimo Lopez is the best New York City fighter since Iron Mike Tyson. I challenge anybody to debate that with me right now. Let's go down the line. Riddick Bowe, undisputed champion, defeated Evander Holyfield, right? And then he dropped his belt in the trash to Lennox Lewis, one of his belts. All due respect, Riddick Bowe is not a Hall of Fame fighter. He only had one signature win. He did not have a run, all right? Teo's better than Riddick Bowe. Then let's talk about the next one. Shannon Briggs, hell of a fighter, former heavyweight champion as well. Shannon Briggs does have a very, very credible win over George Foreman, right? George Foreman, Shannon Briggs is not better than Teofimo Lopez. Zab Judah, another one of my favorite fighters. Undisputed champion at 147. Former champion at 140. One of the most talented fighters of all time. Zab Judah lost the majority of his big fights. Zab Judah's best wins, right? Lucas Matisse, Corey Spinks. He has some good wins, but he doesn't have a Lomachenko win or a Josh Taylor win, right? Zab Judah lost most of his big fights. Teofimo Lopez already has a better career than Zab Judah right now. Kevin Kelly, hell of a fighter. Nowhere close to Teofimo Lopez. Poison Jr. Jones, hell of a fighter. Nowhere near Teofimo Lopez, right? Who else? Paulie Malignaggi, 2-division world champion. Hell of a fighter. His best wins was against a past his prime Zab Judah. He also defeated the Raging Bull, right? Not better than Lomachenko. Not better than Josh Taylor, right? Not better than Richard Comey. Paulie Malignaggi is not better than Teofimo Lopez, right? So with that being said, if all those guys, and most of them are retired already, with the exception of Richardson Hitchens, if Teo were to retire at the same time with Zab and all them guys, Teofimo Lopez would get into the Hall of Fame before them. As much as his contemporaries say, oh, he's not from New York. And shout out to my boy Norbs, right? The 10A podcast, shout out to him. Me and Norbs had a conversation, which kind of inspired this topic right now. Norbs said, oh, Miguel Cotto, Norbs. I told Norbs, Miguel Cotto was born in New York City, migrated to Puerto Rico. We're giving him to Puerto Rico. He's a Puerto Rican fighter. He's a Puerto Rican legend. So we're not going to put Miguel Cotto in this conversation. The best New York City fighters, Hector Camacho came out before Mike Tyson. So I'm not going to mention Hector Camacho. Hector Camacho and then Mike Tyson. And after Mike Tyson, the next best fighter from New York City, whether y'all want to say he's from New York or not, is Teofimo Lopez. And you know me, man, I keep it a beam. I'm a Teo supporter, right? I'm probably one of 3 other guys that actually root for Teo in the YouTube community, besides 3 other channels. Shout out to Punch Drunk Boxing. Shout out to Norbs. Shout out to my brother from Philly, all facts, no opinions. You know what I mean? Shout out to HLD. That's about it. Nobody else be rooting for Teo. And I hold Teo accountable when Teo be doing some crazy stuff. When he says crazy things, I hold him accountable. When he has lackluster performances, I hold him accountable. But I got to give him his props. As of right now, Teofimo Lopez is the best New York City fighter since Iron Mike Tyson. And if he beats Shakur Stevenson in January, I'm going to go on the limb to say that Teofimo Lopez has surpassed Iron Mike Tyson. Yes. I'm going to say that. Because Mike Tyson, all due respect, Mike Tyson lost to his contemporaries that were in their prime. Teo defeated Lomachenko, who's a #1 pound-for-pound fighter at the time. 1, 2, 3, you can flip it around. He defeated Josh Taylor, who was the lineal champion, who should have been the undisputed champion at the time, but due to the politics, he had to relinquish a belt or 2, right? Teofimo Lopez has better wins than any other fighter, including Mike Tyson. But Mike Tyson did legendary stuff. We can't take that away from Mike Tyson. So we're not going to take that crown away from Mike Tyson as of yet. So let's fast forward. January 31st, Teofimo Lopez versus Shakur Stevenson, right? Pardon me if I'm not really interacting with the chat right now, because like I said, I'm driving. But I appreciate the feedback, appreciate the comments for sure. You said Teofimo Lopez is a bigot. Hey, I mean, I can't defend him on that. You know what I mean? Teofimo Lopez has said some nutty stuff that I do not agree with. Do I believe Teofimo Lopez is genuinely racist? I don't believe that. But do you have the right to call him racist? Absolutely. Because the things that he said brought that reputation upon himself. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about his boxing accomplishments. If Teofimo Lopez defeats Shakur Stevenson, I'm going to go as far as to say Teofimo Lopez is top 3 pound for pound right now. Behind the King, Terrence Bud Crawford, behind Alexander Usyk. And I already know a lot of y'all hipsters are going to say, oh, he ain't better than Inoue. Inouye's a hell of a fighter, right? Multi-division. I think he's a 2-time, 2-division undisputed champion. Not 3, because I think Bud Crawford's the only one that did it, right? But a resume means more than belts. It goes hand in hand. The fighter makes the belt. All due respect, Inoue does not have a Lomachenko on his resume. He doesn't have a Josh Taylor on his resume. And I'm not going to count the chickens before they hatch, because Teo hasn't beaten Shakur yet, if it happens, right? May the best man win. Inoue does not have a Shakur Stevenson on his resume. So, and this doesn't just go for Teo. It goes for Shakur Stevenson as well. If Shakur Stevenson beats Teofimo Lopez January 31st, Shakur Stevenson is top 3 pound for pound. Yes, he is. Yes, he is. Yes, he is. This is a trend right now that I hope begins in boxing. For too many years, we've had great fighters in their prime take on great guys that were somewhat past their prime, right? We're going to have 2 fighters that are in their prime, right? In their 20s. Guys that are accomplished. Guys that have championships in more than one weight class. Guys that have been unified, right? Undisputed, arguably. Because a lot of people say Teo wasn't undisputed. Me personally, I recognize his run at 135 as undisputed. Screw the politics. Shakur Stevenson, 3-division champion, unified champion, arguably the best defensive fighter today, right? And I know what y'all going to say. Oh, we already had Gervonta Davis versus Ryan Garcia. That was the first King fight. We had Ryan Garcia versus Devin Haney. All due respect, Ryan Garcia is not a king. Ryan Garcia is not a king. And once again, you know how I carry it. I'm a historian. Let's talk about the original kings, right? When they fought each other, the first official king fight was between Sugar Ray Leonard and Wilfredo Benitez. Going into that fight, Sugar Ray Leonard was a Olympic gold medalist, the golden boy, right? Wilfredo Benitez was already someone who's in the Guinness Book of World Records, the youngest world champion of all time at 17 years old. The youngest 2-division champion of all time at 21 years old. Both guys were highly accomplished. Ray Leonard wasn't a champion yet, but he had the Olympic gold medal pedigree. Ryan Garcia didn't bring anything to the table in terms of accomplishments, but social media following. All due respect. Not trying to diss Ryan Garcia, right? But if you want to call them the king, let's carry it all the way. When the kings started fighting each other, they were already accomplished. Ryan Garcia was not accomplished when he fought Tank Davis. Ryan Garcia was not accomplished when he fought Devin the Dream, Debo, Dev Dollars, Haney, right? He wasn't accomplished. Teofimo Lopez is accomplished, even suffered a loss and bounced back. Shakur Stevenson, already accomplished, a pound-for-pound fighter, right? This is the first king fight in boxing. And this is the trend that has to happen in order for boxing to move on. And that's not the only fight with 2 guys in their 20s. Shout out to Devin the Dream, Dev Dollars, Debo Haney. Shout out to Brian Norman Beatstorm, a.k.a. Mini Marvin Hagler. If Brian Norman Jr. beats Devin Haney, I'm going to put Brian Norman Jr. on the list in terms of one of the new kings, right? 2026 is shaping up to be a spectacular career in boxing. These are the fights we need, man. We need guys in their prime, man. You know what I mean? It's a blessing in disguise that Gervonta Davis and Jake Paul is not going to happen. It's a blessing in disguise, because now for Tank to get the bag, Tank has to fight his contemporaries. Tank's already 30 plus years old. It's time to take on Shakur. It's time to take on Tio. It's time to take on all the guys, bro. And as much flack Teofimo Lopez gets for the nutty stuff that he says and his antics, we got to give him props for what he does inside the ring. Yeah, he avoided Devin Haney. That was a duck move. I admit it, he did. But he made up for it. He's fighting someone who arguably is better than Devin Haney. A fighter that has never taken a beat down in the ring before, in Shakur Stevenson. And people really be overlooking Tio. It's crazy. Like, they treat Tio like a real underdog. They kind of treat they treat Tio sort of like the way they treated Danny Garcia, right? All due respect, Danny Garcia was an overachiever, a fighter who didn't really have special attributes, but a good, solid fighter, but no special effects. But Tio, a fighter with special effects, gets treated like an underdog. And I get it. That's because of his lackluster performances. He fights to the level of his competition, and that's dangerous. That's dangerous, because if you fight a low-level guy and you fight down to the competition, you could wind up losing to a low-level guy. So for me, Teofimo Lopez should only be fighting high-level fighters. Because you put him in with Lomachenko, he wiped him out 9-3. Put him in there with Josh Taylor, beat him up all over that ring, damn near dropped him twice, beat him 10-2. Put him in there with Arnold Barboza, undefeated, hell of a fighter, with a good resume, a guy that beat Jack Catterall, 32-0, a guy that people were saying might beat Tio. Tio 12-0'd him. Looked like the Spanish Floyd Mayweather in that ring. When he took on Richard Comey, after a lackluster performance against Nakatani, he had Richard Comey doing backflips all over New York with that big right hand. So do I pick Teofimo Lopez to beat Shakur Stevenson? Absolutely. Do I feel it's a 50-50 fight? Absolutely. Now, a lot of people be like, oh, Shakur got way better defense, right? And I was saying that, right? But the difference is Teofimo Lopez's defense is very underrated. You know, when both guys were matched up against pressure, high-volume punchers like William Cepeda and Steve Claggett, Teofimo Lopez got hit less than Shakur Stevenson. Tio got hit 140 times. Shakur Stevenson got hit 270 times. And a lot of people going to say, oh, but Tio's not a high-volume guy. Tio threw damn near 1,000 punches against Steve Claggett. The guy has underrated defense. His face falls apart a lot. I guess it's because of his genetics. You know what I mean? But make no mistake about it. This is an incredible fight. You got two guys in their prime. Two guys with cat-like reflexes. Two guys with great defense. You got one guy with knockout power, even though Tio hasn't knocked anything loose in a minute. But let's not forget, for the most part, Tio's been fighting on the back foot, moving around a lot. He hasn't been planting his feet. And he's been fighting guys that either been running from him or guys that were much bigger than him, right? But you put him in there with a guy that's coming up from 135 who started at 126, Tio's power is going to have the effect on Shakur Stevenson the same way that it had effect to the guys when he was at 135. Remember when Danny Garcia was knocking shit loose at 140? He moved up to 147, the knockout stopped. But whenever he faced a guy that was coming up from 140, like Brandon Rios, like Adrian Granados, he was cooking their toast. He was knocking their issue loose. You know what I mean? I'm not saying he gonna knock Shakur Stevenson out, because Shakur Stevenson can very well win this fight as well. If Shakur Stevenson maintains his distance, just enough distance to get his shots off and get out of dodge, and frustrate Teo, he could beat Teo. But if Teo hits him with something and gets his respect, Shakur might move around a little bit more than he should. And once again, Teo's not a slouch when it comes to boxing skills. Yeah, man. Like I said before, Teofimo Lopez is the best fighter from New York City since Iron Mike Tyson. I don't care what anybody got to say about that. I stand on that. That's how I feel right now. That's how I feel right now. You know, I don't be going live like that neither, you know what I mean? But, you know, I don't like looking at the screen and talking to myself, because I don't got too many followers yet, too many subscribers yet, you know what I mean? So I don't want to be, you know, I don't got too many people in the building right now. Shout out to the few that are right now, you know what I mean? I apologize if I'm not reading the comments, because once again, I got to drive, man. I got to be safe. But I appreciate y'all tuning in to me. Low Nose Boxing. You know what I mean? May everybody have a blessed day. God bless y'all all. God bless your family. God bless everything y'all doing, man. Prosper. Live life, man. But put God first. That's the best investment a person can make, is having God in their life. Jesus Christ. You know what I mean? So with that being said, thank you for tuning in. Hit the like button, share the video, leave a comment, subscribe. Low Nose Boxing. Low Nose Boxing, man. I just had to make the sneak live, man. Y'all stay up and God bless.